extremely tragic news coming on New Year's Day. This happened during a New Year's Eve party. Now, at least 15 people were killed and dozens wounded after a truck deliberately rammed into people celebrating the New Year in the U.S. city of New Orleans.
The FBI has said it was investigating the attack as a possible act of terrorism. The FBI has identified the attacker as Shamsuddin Jabbar, a 42-year-old U.S. citizen from Texas, and an Army veteran. President Joe Biden has said that he was informed by the FBI that the suspect posted videos indicating that he was inspired by ISIS hours before the incident.
The FBI is leading the investigation to determine what happened, why it happened, and whether there was any continuing threat to public safety.
The attack took place after 3 a.m. local time near the intersection of the Canal and Bourbon Streets, a historic tourist destination known for its music and bars where crowds were celebrating the New Year. The suspect drove a white Ford F-150 electric pickup into a group of pedestrians. He then exited the vehicle and was killed in an exchange of gunfire with police, 2 of whom were wounded.
Some reports said the pickup truck was flying a black flag of the Islamic State group, while another said that an ISIS flag was found in the vehicle. The FBI added that 2 homemade bombs were also found and neutralized. The FBI said it believes the suspect may have had accomplices.
We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates.
The police are sweeping parts of the city looking for possible explosive devices and converged on neighborhoods in search of clues. Meanwhile, officials have postponed the Sugar Bowl, which is a classic college football game played in New Orleans each year on New Year's Day. The game between Notre Dame and Georgia was put off for 24 hours.
Meanwhile, in the city of Las Vegas, at least 1 person was killed and 7 wounded when a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside a hotel. That hotel belongs to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, and officials say that the Cybertruck pulled up to the Trump International Hotel's glass entrance before a large explosion. President Joe Biden said the authorities are probing any possible connection between the explosion and the attack in New Orleans.
Additionally, we're tracking the explosion of a Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Law enforcement and the intelligence community are investigating this as well, including whether there's any possible connection with the attack in New Orleans. Thus far, there's nothing to report on that score at this time.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tadani has been tracking the incident, all the developments, and we spoke to her earlier on the terrorist attack in New Orleans.
The FBI and the Harris County Sheriff's Office have expanded the investigation, securing perimeters in North Houston in the state of Texas linked to Jabbar's network and where he lived. They believe that there are additional suspects and possible co-conspirators involved in the New Orleans attack. Evidence linked to the Islamic State flag and weapons found in Jabbar's rented vehicles suggest coordination with extremist group. Now the next steps are tracking possible communications with accomplices while enhancing safety and security at major events, notably in New Orleans' Sugar Bowl, which was rescheduled for tomorrow.
All right, to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Dr. Charles Kupchan from Washington, D.C. He's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Dr. Kupchan, thank you so much for joining us here on World DNA. Sir, do you feel there are chances of accomplices being in place here, or do you feel Jabbar acted alone? At this point, there are only, it's being suspected that the role of accomplices cannot be ruled out.
Yeah, we don't know yet, but the fact that there are other explosive devices that were found, reports are that they were not actually on the truck itself, would suggest that he may have had some help here. These kinds of attacks that are targeted against crowds are difficult to stop. We know that they do occur via what we call the lone wolf, the individual acting alone. But at least in this case, we're hearing the FBI is pursuing other leads and does believe that he was working in cooperation with other individuals.
Absolutely. Now, the FBI is, of course, looking at this as a terror attack. The ISIS, of course, has not confirmed any involvement. They have not claimed the attack. But then could there be a possible foul play here? Because it has been happening that we know that the German Christmas market attack just happened a few weeks ago. And people get inspired by these attacks. Do you think it was a foul play, or do you think it's a larger issue here?
Well, I think these kinds of attacks are increasingly becoming the norm, because ever since 9/11, it's been much more difficult to carry out the big attacks, hijacking airplanes, going after crowds in, let's say, stadiums, because the intelligence networks are doing a much better job. There's much tighter security at airports. There's tighter security at stadiums. And so here, in this case, we're looking at a lucrative target, a large group of people. The truck went up on the sidewalk. It avoided a police car that was blocking the road, as well as various kinds of barriers. Exactly what happened at the Christmas market in Germany. In Israel, what do we see happen increasingly? People driving trucks or cars into bus stops. Why? Because you can't guard every bus stop. So in a world in which there is a greater effort and a successful effort to clamp down on the big terrorist events, I think we're going to see more and more of these kinds of attacks on unprotected clusters of people at parties, at bus stops, in stores, in malls. It's a much easier target.
Dr. Kupchan, what we know so far about the accused is Jabbar was a U.S. citizen, army veteran. Do you feel somebody, if we put his name aside and just look at this U.S. citizen, army veteran, to somebody like that to get radicalized, having an ISIS flag in the car, how possible is it? And do you feel there would be more such cases coming to light?
We've seen this before. As far as we know, Jabbar was born in the United States, raised in the United States, served in the military as a patriot, converted to Islam at some point. And clearly, whether it was online or through friends, he became radicalized. We've seen a similar kind of story of individuals in Europe. When this turn took place, how this turn took place, whether he was working with other members of the Islamic State, we don't know. But we do know that the Islamic State has been able to recoup from some of the serious unraveling that happened during the counter-ISIL campaign. ISIS-K in Afghanistan has carried out attacks in Russia. We know that ISIS is continuing to carry out operations in Syria. The U.S. has gone after those cells recently. There are footprints in Africa. So this is part of a terrorist network that is still able to function. And here we're seeing to carry out attacks in the United States itself.
Absolutely. And the timing is extremely important because we know that 20th of January is coming up. We have, of course, Trump's inauguration. But on the other hand, do you think that the Tesla Cybertruck, this is, of course, it has happened in the same place in New Orleans. Do you think it has to be connected? And do you think we'll see more of such things happening till the time Trump takes the presidency on 20th of January?
We don't know about this explosion of the Cybertruck. The fact that it took place near a Trump-owned hotel is significant. It would suggest that there may be a connection. I don't think we're going to see a sudden spate of attacks in the United States. It's really quite remarkable that since 9/11, it's been very difficult to carry out such attacks. Many of them have been blocked before they've taken shape. It's really much harder to deliver these kinds of attacks against the United States. So no, I'm not expecting a contagion, but I do think that the lesson here is that groups, ISIS included, Al-Qaeda, other groups are alive and well. All of our societies need to remain on guard against these kinds of attacks.
That was Dr. Charles Kupchan joining us from Washington, D.C. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Doctor.
Good night.